You can do it! Wire! Wire. It's strong. It's bendable. And sometimes it gets kinky. Working with wire is simple, and we will share some useful tips to make it even easier. The wire we'll be using today is made of aluminum. Aluminum. Up until the late 1880s, aluminum was more expensive than silver and gold. But now it's a common everyday material. Its lightweight property, combined with its strength and malleability, makes aluminum a good choice for wire objects. Before working with wire, think safety first. Wearing protective goggles is a good idea, though a hard hat isn't necessary. When working with wire, you will need a few tools: wire cutters, pliers, tape, files, and sandpaper. Wire cutters are an effective tool for cutting wire, thus the name. Scissors, however, are not an ideal choice. Wire cutters pinch the metal in order to cut, leaving an unattractive, sharp point. To remove this point, a file is needed. The proper way to file is to brace the wire against a stable surface, then push the file in one direction only, from head to tail. Lift the file up before repeating the pushing motion. Sawing back and forth only dulls the file and quickly gums up the teeth with metal. Should you get extra metal embedded in the file, a file card can help clean some of the excess. Filing the ends is an important step that should not be skipped. If left unfiled, the ends of your wire will be sharp and may cut you or others. To manipulate the wire, you will need a pair of pliers. Often pliers have teeth for better gripping, which is useful for many applications. Unfortunately, the teeth often leave terrible marks on aluminum wire. To avoid this, temporarily wrap your pliers in electrical or masking tape. If you don't, you risk having your work look like a hamster chewed on it. Before beginning, it is important to remember that although metal is strong, it can be broken if bent back and forth too many times. This breaking is called metal fatigue. Nighty-night, Mr. Wire. Wrapping wire can make a line look thicker in your composition, but tight joints are a sign of good craftsmanship. Loose joints can make your project look very messy. Certain joining techniques function better than others. Creating bends in the metal to trap a coiled connection often works. Coiling onto a bended section doesn't allow the joint to travel as much as it would on a straight section. Creating eye hooks can work for looser connections where movement is not an issue for structural integrity. Trying to splice together wire end to end is not effective. Strapping wires together like an old-timey fence or a raft made on a deserted island is even less so. It is advised to cut and file the second end before final tightening of a joint. Should you accidentally get a nick in the wire, the only way to remove it is by using sandpaper. Before sanding, think safety first. Wearing a dust mask is a good idea. Seriously, you don't need the hard hat. Wet dry sandpaper, also known as silicon carbide paper, is used for metal. It is normally black in color, and as the name says, it can be used either wet or dry. The tan sandpaper, easily found in stores, has garnet or aluminum oxide embedded in it. This sandpaper is good for wood, but is not appropriate for fine metal sanding. When purchasing and using sandpaper, it is useful to know its grit numbering system. Grit is the number of particles located on a 1-inch square of sandpaper. Rougher sandpaper has bigger particles, therefore the number is lower than finer sandpaper whose particles are smaller and more tightly compacted. Which grit level to use first depends on how deep the nicks or marring is. In this example, 320 grit is being used. After the surface is sanded, you may wish to step up to a higher number or finer level of grit, in this case 400. finer grits are used until the desired surface finish is achieved. Many steps of sanding are needed to remove nicks and tool chew marks, therefore it is in your best interest to be careful and not mark them in the first place. Nom nom nom. Now, you know enough to get started on your wire project. We know that you can do it.